My best friend and I woke up inside a novel at the exact same time. I ended up as the tragic male lead, and he became the story's primary antagonist. The day we arrived, he strolled in my corner office under the guise of discussing a merger. He dropped in the chair across from me, his tailored suit barely containing his explosive physique. He gave me a knowing wink. "Listen, man, I won't fight you for the female lead," he said, grinning. "But her little childhood friend, the delicate, soft-spoken one, he's exactly my type. You have to set us up." Back in the real world, we were both hardened guys. I knew better than anyone that he had a thing for the sensitive, pretty boy archetype. I burst out laughing. "Consider it done. Wait for my signal tonight." When I got home, my wife, Chloe Vanderbilt, was just heading into the master bathroom for a shower. I had to admit, the female lead's beauty was otherworldly. She had a slender waist and legs that seemed to go on forever. Even after a month in this world, just looking at her made my throat go dry. When I first arrived a month ago, I was stunned by her. I spent that first night being relentlessly charming, finally winning over the wife the original character hadn't touched in 3 years of marriage. After a month of getting to know each other, Chloe had developed a bit of an appetite for me. She had shed her usual icy demeanor and become incredibly clingy. Seeing me return, she practically flew into my arms, her voice soft and honeyed. "Hey, handsome, care for a joint shower?" I wasn't about to say no. I scooped her up and carried her straight into the steam. Later, just as we were moving the party to the bedroom, the weather outside turned violent. A sudden thunderstorm rolled in, lashing the windows with rain and thunder. Right then, her phone started buzzing incessantly on the nightstand. Chloe caught a glimpse of the caller ID and immediately snatched it up. Her expression shifted to one of pure panic. "Julian? What? You're scared of the thunder?" She listened for a moment, her face softening into maternal concern. "Don't cry. I'm coming over right now." She hung up and looked at me, guilt swimming in her eyes. "Ethan, I'm so sorry. Julian just got back to the States yesterday, and he's had a phobia of storms since we were kids. He's all alone in that apartment. I need to go check on him. I promise. I only see him as a little brother. I'll be back as soon as the storm lets up." She leaned in, giving me several apologetic, lingering kisses. As she scrambled to put her clothes back on, I reached out and pulled her back into the pillows. "Don't worry, babe," I whispered. "I've already handled it." She looked up, her eyes wide with confusion. I traced a hand down the curve of her back and smiled. "Julian lives in the Chelsea Highline Apartments, right?" Chloe shivered, her confusion deepening. How did you know that?" "I know everything. Caleb Stone got tired of his mansion and just moved into that building today. He's Julian's next-door neighbor. You three grew up together, right? It's much more convenient for a big brother like Caleb to go comfort him. Don't worry, I'll call him right now." I dialed Caleb right in front of her. He agreed instantly, his voice dripping with mock seriousness. Chloe finally relaxed, her gaze turning hazy again as her hands began to wander. "You're so thoughtful, Ethan. What would I do without you?" she murmured. She didn't just stay in bed. She took charge. In the original book, Caleb Stone was the ultimate villain. He was the older neighbor who had watched Chloe grow up. He was 10 years older than her, and by the time she was in high school, he had already entered a political marriage of convenience. He claimed to see her as a sister, but he secretly obsessed over her. Because of the age gap and his marriage, he buried those feelings deep. In the original plot, after Julian returned to the country, he framed the original Ethan for bullying him multiple times. Chloe would fly into a rage, constantly demanding a divorce. The original Ethan, a total doormat, refused to let go. Caleb then used his corporate might to crush Ethan's family business, eventually beating him into submission. Ethan ended up signing the divorce papers in tears and fleeing to Europe. According to the usual tropes, only after the divorce did Chloe see Julian's true colors, learning that his accidental falls and kidnappings were all self-choreographed plays. Chloe would realize Ethan had spent 7 years worshiping her, realize she loved him, and then the groveling for forgiveness arc would begin. It was a mess of high-octane angst. My buddy and I had read this trashy novel together back in the real world. Now that we were in it, we were having the time of our lives. In our past lives, we were just corporate drones. Now, we were billionaire CEOs. This wasn't a tragedy. It was a power fantasy. My friend had always liked the pure-hearted boys, but never had the money or status to pull one. Now that he was a dominant CEO, he'd set his sights on the story's resident green tea manipulator. As his best friend, I was happy to oblige. The battle last night was intense. We didn't wake up until nearly noon the next day. A thunderous pounding at the front door woke us. I signaled the housekeeper to open it, and there stood Julian Vance, looking like a shattered porcelain doll. Chloe drifted downstairs in a silk robe. Honey, who is it? Julian walked in, his eyes rimmed with red, looking at Chloe with pure resentment. Chloe, did Ethan forbid you from coming to see me last night? A tear escaped and rolled down his cheek. I know I'm not worthy of your care, but the storm, it was so loud. I was just so scared being alone. I almost laughed at the sheer theatricality of it. Julian, didn't Caleb go over to stay with you? Did he not show up? Chloe looked confused and stepped forward to take his hand. That's right. Julian, Caleb promised he'd look after you. Did he break his word? Don't worry, I'll call and chew him out right now. I won't let you be mistreated. Before she could finish, Julian started sobbing harder. He looked like he'd suffered the greatest injustice in human history, biting his lip as if holding back a terrible secret. Caleb, Julian sniffled, his voice trembling. He came over. Chloe exhaled, her tone softening. Well, that's good. If Caleb was there, what was there to be afraid of? I leaned back against the velvet sofa, a wicked smirk playing on my lips. Chloe, Julian stammered, his voice thick with accusation. Caleb came over. But what? Chloe pressed, her brow furrowing. Just then, Caleb Stone walked in, laughing loudly. He looked at Julian's tear-stained face and put on a show of faux annoyance. Julian, why did you run off without waiting for me? We talked until dawn. It was a great night. In the future, if it thunders, don't bother Chloe and Ethan. Just call me directly. Julian's face turned a sickly shade of green. He scrambled behind Chloe, his eyes darting around, refusing to look Caleb in the eye. In the past, Caleb and the original Ethan hated each other, so Caleb rarely visited. Chloe's eyes lit up seeing him, clearly happy to see her two brothers getting along. I played along, inviting them both to stay for lunch. Julian tried to flee, but Chloe insisted with overwhelming hospitality. At the table, Caleb was relentless, piling food onto Julian's plate. Here, Julian, you had a big fright last night. Have some of this abalone. It's good for your constitution. Oh, look, your eyes are red again. I know moving back from abroad is hard. Eat up. Julian resisted at first, but then he seemed to just break. He sat there expressionless, opening his mouth and eating whatever Caleb put in front of him. The look he shot me, however, was pure poison. Chloe, seeing this harmonious scene, beamed with pride. After the post-meal fruit, Julian's eyes shifted. Chloe, it's my first time at your new place. I was wondering if Ethan could give me a tour. Chloe didn't suspect a thing. She nodded enthusiastically. Of course. Ethan, show him around. The estate is huge. Julian should see it all. She gave me a playful wink, as if saying be nice. Caleb leaned back, casually using a toothpick, his eyes tracking Julian and me with a playful, dangerous glint. He didn't say a word. Sure, I said, setting my teacup down slowly. I stood up and stared Julian down with a half-smile. If little brother Julian wants a tour, I'm happy to oblige. After you. The second we reached the second-floor landing, I looked at him mockingly. So, Julian, sleep well last night? Julian's pupil shrank. He balled his fists, his eyes burning with rage. What did you say? I feigned shock. Whoa, why the big reaction? Did I do something to you? Julian looked like he was about to spontaneously combust. Ethan Miller, stop the act. He stood at the edge of the stairs, trembling. Last night, it was you, wasn't it? You and Caleb set this up. You intentionally kept Chloe away. Let me tell you, now that I'm back, Chloe belongs to me. Just you wait. His eyes turned cold and resolute. Then, he intentionally stepped into thin air, tumbling backward down the stairs. Yeah, Julian let out a scream like a slaughtered pig. He tumbled all the way to the marble floor below, his forehead instantly swelling and blooming with blood. He curled up like a shrimp, wailing at the top of his lungs. Julian. Downstairs, Chloe leaped to her feet. Her face went pale as she rushed over. Julian, are you okay? She helped him sit up, her voice frantic. Where are you hurt? What happened? Julian's tears fell like rain. Chloe, it's my fault. I just slipped. It had nothing to do with Ethan. Right on cue, Caleb rushed over with exaggerated concern. He practically snatched Julian out of Chloe's arms, clutching him to his chest with a look of feigned heartbreak. He looked up at me with a glare that could melt steel. Ethan, this is too much, he roared. Julian is so kind. How could you push him? I want an apology right now, or I'll never forgive you. Standing on the landing, I gave Caleb a discreet thumbs up. The kid's acting was top tier. Caleb blinked back at me, signaling for me to play my part. But Chloe beat me to it. She stepped in front of me, shielding me, and looked at Caleb with genuine annoyance. Caleb, how can you blame my husband? Julian said himself, it was an accident. If you're going to keep throwing dirt on Ethan, You aren't welcome in this house anymore. The room went dead silent. Even I was stunned. Caleb and Julian's eyes nearly popped out of their heads. In the original script, that was supposed to be Chloe's cue to scream at me. She was supposed to join the condemnation. Instead, she was my fiercest defender. The plot was officially off the rails. Caleb frowned, pretending to be offended. Fine, if I'm not welcome, I won't stay. Come on, Julian. Big brother Caleb is taking you to the hospital. Without another word, he scooped Julian up in a bridal carry and stormed out. Julian thrashed in his arms. Caleb, put me down. I'm not going. I'm not going with you. As I hit the front door, Julian threw one last, desperate look back at us. It was a look of pure, pitiful terror. Once they were gone, Chloe melted into my arms. Ethan, ignore him. I'll always believe you. I was starting to really like this girl. I cupped her face and kissed her deeply, only letting go when she was breathless. 3 days later, Caleb hosted a homecoming gala for Julian at a luxury island resort. He invited all their childhood friends. Chloe and I attended together. A group of socialites, Chloe's inner circle, were clustered around the delicate-looking Julian. As Chloe and I walked arm in arm, they all stared in shock. Why did Chloe bring Ethan? She used to hate bringing him to these things. Obviously, he's just clinging to her like a leech. Exactly. Ethan is just Chloe's pet. If Julian hadn't gone abroad, Chloe would never have married a doormat like him. Julian's face lit up at their words, and he shot me a smug look. I walked over slowly, letting out a dry chuckle. You three are the daughters of the Montgomery, Reynolds, and Sterling families, right? I asked. If I recall, all three of your families are currently begging for contracts from the Miller Group. And yet here you are, gossiping about your biggest benefactor. Is this what passes for high society manners these days? The three women froze. Their faces turned a frantic shade of gray. I pulled out my phone and called my assistant. Listen up. Terminate all current and future partnerships with the Montgomerys, the Reynolds, and the Sterlings. Effective immediately. The entire room gasped. One woman in a red dress stood up, trembling with rage. Ethan Miller, we just said a few things. Is this really necessary? Chloe stepped forward then, her brow furrowed and her voice cold as ice. Sienna, Quinn, Lana, we grew up together. I considered you my best friends. But if you ever speak about my husband like that again, we're done. Our friendship is over. Her words were like a bucket of ice water. The three women stood there, their anger turning into humiliating shock. Their families were significantly less powerful than the Vanderbilts or the Millers. They opened their mouths to speak, but the words died in their throats. Seeing the atmosphere sour, Julian, dressed in a pristine white suit, stood up to play peacemaker. Chloe, Ethan, I'm so glad you came. Thank you for celebrating my return. Chloe's expression softened slightly, and she gave a curt nod. Julian, now that you're back, if you ever need help, let me know. I'll do what I can. The help she offered sounded distant, a formality. Julian's smile faltered for a fraction of a second before he recovered. Thanks, Chloe. He looked at me with those innocent, wide eyes. Ethan, about the other day at your house. It was my fault for being clumsy. I'm so sorry for the trouble. Ah, so he was playing the long game now, the humble victim? I smiled. Don't worry about it. As long as you're okay. You look quite flushed. I take it Caleb is taking good care of you. Caleb strolled over then, laughing as he threw a heavy arm around Julian's narrow shoulders. You bet. Julian is so fragile. An older brother like me has to be attentive. Right, Julian? Julian's body went rigid. A flash of panic crossed his eyes, but he didn't dare pull away. He managed a pained, strained smile. The guests then began presenting gifts. Caleb stepped forward and pulled out a small velvet box. Inside were matching couples' rings. When the jewelry hit the light, Julian's face went pale. The room erupted in whispers, eyes darting between the two men. Even Chloe looked suspicious. Halfway through the party, I stepped out to the pool area to take an important business call. Julian followed me out, his face twisted with resentment. Ethan Miller, I don't know how you brainwashed Chloe into defending you, he spat. But Chloe has only ever cared about me. Everyone we grew up with knows it. If you have any dignity, you'll leave her. You just filled a void while I was gone. Do you really think she cares about you? I glanced at the feminine cut ring on his ring finger and smirked. Caleb has great taste. That ring looks beautiful on you. Julian's resentment froze. It was as if someone had grabbed him by the throat. He looked down at his slender hand, his pupils blowing wide. He jerked his hand behind his back as if the ring were red hot. What are you talking about? He stammered, his face turning crimson. It's a man's ring. Don't you dare lie. I laughed. Why so defensive? Julian's face turned an even deeper shade of red. I'm not. Stop changing the subject. Chloe is mine. Watch this. If we both fall into the pool, she'll save me first. He lunged at me, trying to push me in. I wasn't about to let that happen. I simply stepped aside. Julian's momentum carried him forward. He lost his footing and hit the water with a massive splash. The commotion drew everyone out of the ballroom. Help! Chloe! Save me! Julian thrashed in the water, spraying foam everywhere. Chloe rushed to the edge, her face pale. Everyone looked at me. I shrugged, palms out. You all saw it. He tripped. I didn't touch him. Caleb dived in, creating a second, larger splash. Caleb was nearly 6'4", a head taller than Julian. He stood up in the shallow, and easily, his white shirt clinging to his muscular frame. Come here, Julian. Let big brother carry you out. The drowning Julian didn't care about the optics anymore. He clung to Caleb like an octopus, trembling with terror. Caleb held him close, whispering loud enough for everyone to hear. It's okay. I've got you. But you really need to be more careful, Julian. You're scaring me. You're just so precious, aren't you? Caleb carried him out of the pool and straight toward the elevators to find a room to change in. The guests watched them go, their expressions becoming increasingly bizarre. Caleb and Julian didn't come back down. The party wound down shortly after. Just as Chloe and I were leaving, a woman dripping in diamonds walked through the front doors. I recognized her, Caleb's wife from the political marriage. They were famously distant in their relationship. She saw Chloe and hurried over. Chloe, have you seen Caleb? He's not answering his phone or my texts. I need him for something. Chloe started to answer, but I cut her off. He left a while ago. Actually, we were just heading out ourselves. The woman sighed, adjusted her sunglasses, and turned on her heel. Fine, if you see him, tell him to call me. When she was gone, Chloe looked at me, puzzled. Ethan, Caleb is upstairs. Why did you lie? I put my arm around her waist and guided her toward the valet. You wouldn't understand. It's better not to disturb him right now. Chloe's jaw dropped. Ethan, are you saying they? She quickly shook her head, giving me a playful swat. Oh, stop it. You're overthinking. Caleb and Julian grew up with me. I know if something was off. Don't be silly. I knew she didn't believe it, so I didn't push. She'd see the truth soon enough. To my surprise, Julian texted me a few days later, asking to meet. I had a free afternoon, so I agreed. We met at a quiet cafe. Julian looked like a wreck. His hair was messy, and he had dark circles under his eyes. He clearly hadn't slept. He glared at me with a mix of fury and anxiety. Ethan Miller, we need to talk. I leaned back, enjoying the view. You look great, Julian. Caleb is clearly a natural caretaker. You. Julian's face turned purple, his fists clenching. He forced himself to breathe, a mocking smile eventually touching his lips. He pulled a small, blessed pendant from under his shirt. Ethan, do you know what this is? I told you, Chloe's heart is mine. When I was 10, I had a mysterious illness that no doctor could cure. Chloe went to a cathedral in San Francisco and prayed on her knees for 3 days to get this for me. I've worn it every day since. She promised she'd wait for me to come back from Europe. His voice rose, his eyes wild. It was you. You're the one who obsessed over her and forced her into this marriage. And you're the one who called Caleb that night. You're a monster. He started sobbing, looking utterly pathetic. Being a good guy, I handed him a napkin. He reflexively took it, went to wipe his eyes, then realized who gave it to him and threw it back at me like it was contaminated. I don't need your pity. I was a bit baffled by his sheer drama queen energy. He cried for a few more minutes before sniffing. Ethan, let's make a deal. Oh, what kind of deal? He wiped his face, tried to regain his composure. Caleb is. He's powerful. He has people everywhere. I can't get away from him. If you get Caleb to leave me alone, I promise I'll never bother Chloe again. Deal. He looked at me desperately. You're the one who started this. You have to fix it. I couldn't help but laugh. Julian, why would I help you? If you can't handle it here, move back to Europe. As for bothering my wife, feel free to try. Seeing that I wasn't budging, Julian stood up and stomped his foot. Don't say I didn't warn you. I have a trump card, and I don't think you can handle it. Just you wait. He threw a mean girl look over his shoulder and marched out. I knew exactly why he didn't want to go back to Europe. He'd been sleeping with a married woman whose husband had major cartel ties. The guy was currently hunting Julian across the continent. Julian had fled back to the States to hide, and being the gold digger he was, he'd set his sights on Chloe as his new meal ticket. As soon as he left, I called Caleb to coordinate. According to the original plot, Julian was about to stage a kidnapping. In the book, he used makeup to fake being beaten and bruised. By the time Chloe arrived, he'd have the ransom money and would frame Ethan for the whole thing. Chloe would be so heartbroken she'd leave Ethan forever. Caleb's booming laugh came through the phone. Don't worry. I'll make sure the fake becomes real. When he's actually bruised and desperate, I'll swoop in as the hero. He'll be mine forever after that. I had a private investigator following Julian 24/7. I got footage of him meeting the kidnappers and paying them. I showed the video to Chloe and told her about the plan. She didn't believe it at first, her eyes wide with disbelief as she watched her sweet little brother negotiate a fake assault. 3 days later, in an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city, Julian sat in a chair, tied up with rope. Behind him stood 4 massive, scarred thugs. These were the actors he'd hired. Standing to the side was a guy with bleached blonde hair, Julian's old friend from Europe, the one tasked with taking the ransom and disappearing. Julian and the blonde guy had it all figured out. They only wanted $2 million. Once Julian was rescued, he convinced Chloe not to call the police for such a small amount. Plus, he'd blame it all on me. As Chloe's husband, she'd deal with me privately to avoid a scandal. It was a perfect plan. Julian sat there, testing the ropes. They were loose enough. He smiled at the blonde guy. Okay, let's get the makeup on. Make it look messy. Suddenly, the lead thug, a man with a jagged scar across his cheek, stepped forward and blocked the blonde guy. He backhanded Julian across the face. The force of the blow was massive. Julian's cheek swelled instantly, and blood leaked from the corner of his mouth. Julian stared at him, stunned and furious. Scar, this is a fake kidnapping. What are you doing? Scar didn't say a word. He backhanded the other side of Julian's face. Now it was symmetrical. Julian's head was ringing. His face felt like it was on fire. Scar, you took our money. Julian screamed. We're acting. Why are you doing it for real? The blonde guy was trembling, backing away into a corner. Shut up, Scar growled, baring yellow teeth. Who's the professional here? You or me? I'm doing this for your own good. If the acting isn't perfect, you'll get caught, and you won't get what you want. Julian processed this. Looking at Scar's terrifying expression, a seed of fear planted itself in his chest. He decided not to argue. He told the blonde guy to start the FaceTime call to Chloe. Meanwhile, Caleb was already on his way with a fleet of SUVs, ready to play the hero. I was nearby with Chloe, watching the show unfold on a private feed. Chloe's phone rang. When she answered, she saw a battered, bloody Julian wailing into the camera. Chloe, I've been kidnapped. They want $2 million. Please, you have to come. If you don't, I'm dead. Don't call the police. They'll kill me. Chloe's face went cold. She spoke into the phone with eerie calm. Julian, enough. That injury looks so fake. How long are you going to keep lying to me? I treated you like a brother. I'm so disappointed. She hung up. Julian froze. The crying expression on his face turned into a mask of pure shock. He looked at Scar, then at his phone, utterly speechless. Scar stepped forward with a sickening smile. See, Julian, I told you. It wasn't real enough. No one believes you. If you want this to work, we have to get serious. I promise, after this, your Chloe will believe every word. Julian's blood ran cold. He looked at Scar's helpful but murderous expression, then thought of Chloe's voice. He grit his teeth. Fina, Scar, do it. Do whatever you have to do. Scar didn't hesitate. He signaled the other 3 men. The 4 of them descended on Julian. It was a brutal, physical assault. The blonde guy in the corner looked like he was about to vomit. Enough. Stop. Please. Julian screamed, begging for mercy. He felt like his ribs were snapping. His face was unrecognizable, a swollen mess of blood and bruises. Yeah, that's more like it, Scar said, satisfied. He looked at the blonde guy. Call her back. This time, she'll believe it. The call connected. Julian lunged at the phone, his voice a hoarse, ragged sob. Chloe, help me. This time it's real. They're really hurting me. Look at my face. Chloe, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Just come save me. I'm at the old warehouse, 10 miles south of the city. They want the $2 million or they're going to kill me. On the other end, Chloe let out a dry, cynical laugh. Julian, if this time is real, that means the last time was fake, right? Julian froze. He just outed himself. He wanted to slap himself for his own stupidity. No. Chloe, let me explain. I mean, they weren't this mean before. Now they're really trying to kill me. Look at me. I am dying. Chloe had reached her limit. Enough, Julian. How many more lies? Are you going to tell me my husband planned this next? I'm not a fool. She hung up again. Julian's head was spinning. This wasn't a script. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Scar stepped in again, his shadow looming over Julian. Still not enough, huh? She's a tough one to convince. We need to go harder. Trust me, I know what I'm doing. Panic finally set in. Scar. Julian's voice was a thin, terrified whimper. I can't. I'm in so much pain. Please, no more. I'll die. Scar frowned. We can't stop now. We took your money. We have to do a professional job. Are you questioning our integrity? Scar waved his hand to his men, his eyes turning vicious. Boys, the client thinks we're amateurs. He thinks we can't even fool a woman. Let's show him what real professionals look like. The thugs moved in for a second round. Julian curled into a ball, his tears mixing with blood on the floor. He finally realized these guys weren't acting anymore. They were venting their own frustrations on him. You bastards. Stop. Do you know who I am? Caleb Stone will kill you for this. Scar spat on the floor. Caleb Stone? You think he gives a damn about a piece of trash like you? Hiring men to lie to a woman. You're pathetic. Men like you deserve a real beating. The thugs doubled their efforts. The blonde guy was crouching in the corner, hyperventilating. Julian was barely conscious, his moans turning into quiet whimpers. He was truly terrified now. He thought he was going to die in this warehouse. Please, no more. I'm a coward. I'm a liar. Just stop, please. Suddenly, the warehouse doors were kicked open. Caleb Stone appeared like a dark god of vengeance. Get your hands off him. He moved like a blur, taking down the four thugs with brutal efficiency. They fled into the night, nursing their wounds. Julian, seeing his savior, lunged for Caleb, buried his face in his chest, and sobbed uncontrollably. Caleb, you're here. I thought I was dead. I was so scared. Caleb held him tight, his large hands stroking Julian's hair. Don't cry, little brother. I've got you. Caleb's voice was thick with concern. I told you, a boy like you needs protection. You never listen, and look what happens. Having been pulled back from the brink of death by Caleb, Julian felt a rush of absolute, desperate dependency. He nodded, his tears staining Caleb's expensive shirt. I'm sorry, Caleb. I'll listen to you from now on. I thought I'd never see you again. Caleb picked him up easily and headed for the door. It's okay, baby. Let's get you to a doctor. And don't worry. I'll find those men and make sure they never walk again. I'll do anything for my Julian. Julian looked up at Caleb, a flicker of something like adoration, or perhaps Stockholm Syndrome, crossing his battered face. Caleb, you're so good to me. Chloe and I watched the whole thing from the shadows. When Caleb called him baby, Chloe literally froze. Her mouth hung open for a good 10 seconds. She looked like she'd been hit by a truck. As Caleb's SUV sped away, I nudged her. See, babe? I told you. Chloe finally blinked, coming back to reality. She shot me a look of pure exasperation and pinched me hard on the waist. Ethan Miller, you stay away from both of them. You hear me? I winced in pain, loud and clear. After that night, Julian never bothered Chloe again. He became Caleb's personal assistant, never leaving his side. For 3 months, they were inseparable. But the honeymoon phase didn't last. Caleb eventually called me out for drinks, looking exhausted. He spent the whole night complaining about Julian. Apparently, Julian had become obsessively possessive, forbidding Caleb from talking to any other man, then becoming jealous of women too. If Caleb so much as ignored a text, Julian would threaten to harm himself. He'd even gone to Caleb's wife, trying to frame her for abuse to get her out of the picture. My life is a nightmare, Ethan, Caleb groaned, knocking back a whiskey. I knew Julian's time was up. I knew Caleb. When he got bored or annoyed, his kindness vanished instantly. A few days later, Caleb told me he'd handled it. Julian had been forcibly sent back to Europe, straight into the hands of that cartel husband he'd been hiding from. Caleb even sent me a video a day later. Julian was in a basement, chained like a dog with a heavy metal collar. Every bone in his lower body had been smashed to splinters. He looked nothing like the pretty boy he used to be. He was barely recognizable as human anymore. I was on a yacht with Chloe when the news came through. We were on our honeymoon. Chloe was in a tiny bikini, struggling to reel in a massive fish. Her figure was breathtaking, and the sea air only made things better. Ethan, come help. It's too big. I can't pull it up. I rushed over, wrapping my arms around her from behind. Ethan, she squealed. Hold the fishing rod. Why are you holding me? Story complete.